Welcome back to the Natsman Hockey Podcast. I am James Nichols of the Fourth Period, and with me, as always, is John Zella of the Hockey Writers. What's up, pal?
It's summer, baby. We're here. We did it. Syracuse is thawed out. Tank tops are out. Shorts are out. I haven't worn socks in like 2 weeks. It's fantastic.
Do you become more hipster or less hipster in the summer?
I think that all like older punk people or hardcore people they all dress like camp counselors in the summer. We all have like gray or some kind of like tan khaki shorts, and we wear polos a lot and some kind of white t-shirt, as I am quite literally right now. So I think we all just like we wear a baseball cap or whatever. We all just look like we are ready. We're CITs or some kind of camp counselor ready to like take the kids kayaking or whatever camp does now. I don't know what camp does now. Out in the woods or whatever. Yeah. So I dress like a camp counselor is what I'm saying. I don't know if that's more or less.
Sounds fun.
It can be. I did that. I had a great week. I'm excited to be sitting and just be inside, even though it's really nice out. Because I went to a baseball game last week.
I saw that photo.
Mountain biking.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I was like, all right, summer's gonna happen. We are leaning into this whole thing pretty hard.
Nice.
And it was great. I'm just very tired, which is okay.
Yeah, that is okay. That means that you did the weekend right.
This started like after the podcast last week.
Now you need a weekend away from your weekend.
Yeah, well, luckily, there was a 3-day weekend this last weekend, which is great. I have another one next weekend, and then in 2 weeks from now. So I got a pretty easy going June. Kickball starts soon. Excited.
Kickball? Like you're
kickball, yeah, in a league.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Like 2 months, which is pretty dope.
That is all
whatever, 8-10 games or something.
We don't have that here.
I think it requires parks and grass. I'm just kidding.
Okay, no, I live in a suburb and we have that. I live around the corner from a park.
Start a kickball league.
That is pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
I don't know where it is. I think I may have gotten an email today about it, but I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's close, but
it's your first time.
Yeah, there's like volleyball, outdoor volleyball leagues, kickball leagues. You see a bunch of the hockey guys out like that playing this couple beer leagues. They're all playing different sports in the summer.
It sounds like you live on a vacation resort. Like these are things that like, oh, at 5:00, join the volleyball tournament. Like at the vacation resort you're staying at. Like
in the summer, it is a vacation resort here because it's it gets hot, but it's not like down there or mid-Atlantic where it was 95 degrees today over the weekend. Like it's very bearable to be outside. You don't need to you're not dying out there. So yeah, it's a little bit, as long as it's not raining. It's beautiful in the summer. Last year sucked. This year's aiming to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just if you can put up with the winters, yeah, you pretty much get a free vacation. All summer is great.
That's pretty darn cool. All right, well, we got to get to work here tonight. And last week we discussed Islander trade options, trade targets, and this week we are going to talk about free agent targets. Now,
you don't talk conference finals first?
Before, yeah, that's a good idea. Quick. We could do that. Sure. Talk to me about what your thoughts were on the conference finals, or the teams that made it to the conference finals.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe Edmonton nearly swept Calgary, if for not a 9-6 game, and whatever happened there. That was a sweep of Calgary.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do if you're the Calgary Flames. I know that kind of sets up our conversation next, but like I do not know what you do after essentially 2 guys beat you and a 41, 42-year-old goalie that just like got hot or whatever, right? Like I don't think he played like amazing. I think he just like was okay and the offense carried it.
You know what though? Mike Smith does this. He gets big and he's naturally big. He's like 6'4", but he rises to the big moments and he steals games for whoever he's in net for. when he needs to, and he did. And I'll say this too: the Flames didn't help themselves. 4-4 at home heading into the third period. You have to find that next gear and close the door, and you don't. I will say though, they got Connor McDavid. I mean, Connor McDavid did. Is that it?
I guess so.
They,
They got Connor McDavid. However you want to say it. Doesn't
the
matter.
first one I said works. Okay,
Well, I don't know.
yeah, they got Connor McDavid. Did I think I have to go with it? Did
Sure.
he just willed that team to winning that series, and Draisaitl's definitely not playing 100%, but he's still a factor.
He scored a ridiculous. Didn't he have like 13 points in 5 games
Probably
in that series on
yeah.
like one ankle?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's like he's hurt, he's not playing 100%, and he's still doing this. I think at one point they put him on the same line with McDavid and Evander Kane, and they just like forget it. Nobody else was touching the puck.
Kane had a good series.
Yeah.
Nurse had a good series.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's I think that's McKinnon McDavid is a heck of a conference final if only for that.
Yeah.
In the West.
I'm very excited for that.
I don't know how Colorado doesn't win that unless McDavid just if he somehow has even another gear on top of that. I don't even we're in store for something really special, but that matchup is, two of the top players in the world kind of going against each other. Who knows? I mean, look at Calgary. That's a deeper team on paper.
Yeah.
Better goaltending, deeper at pretty much every position. And they still lost handily.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Colorado has some demons for sure. So it's an uphill battle.
And that's I bet against the Oilers probably in both rounds. I didn't think that they were as deep as some of their opponents. I still don't think they're going to be as deep as the Avalanche as they head into that matchup tonight. The forwards probably cancel out, but the defense they don't have a Cal McCarr. And goaltenders, I would assume Darcy Kemper is better than Mike Smith, but like I said before, Smith has just these moments where he just rises to the occasion. I mean, and then he also has these moments where he gives up the first shot of the game, and it's like,
they're playing from behind.
It was you should have had that kind of a thing. So,
and that might be where it evens out.
Yeah,
if I think that's been a tough point for Colorado all season.
Yeah,
is not having the goaltending that they had the previous year, and I forget, what's his name went to Seattle.
Oh yeah, Grubauer. Went to Seattle.
In my head, I'm like McGruber, and I'm like, that's not right, but it's not. It's also not wrong.
That sounds
also, if that's not his nickname, I'm going to be really upset.
That sounds like some new hamburger that they release at McDonald's.
McGruber was a TV show, right? It was with the guy who did Last Man on Earth.
I don't know.
I can't remember his name, but very funny. Oh God, what's his name? Will Forte. I think he also did McGruber.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So whatever. Far from the point. If that's not his nickname, I'd be very disappointed. Grubauer. So I think that's where. No, I don't know about the offense. Again, I think Calgary is much deeper in all positions than Edmonton. I think Colorado is deeper pretty much at all positions, save. I mean, maybe goaltending's a little more even. But I think Colorado's deeper there too.
Oh yeah, no, I hands down agree with you.
So but if McDavid's going to McDavid, and
that's why I said maybe the forwards cancel each other out, right? Because McDavid is just
it's going to be it's going to be a middle bottom six wins it kind of thing, because those stars might cancel each other out.
Yeah.
I think McKinnon is better than anybody on Calgary, just but points aside. In the playoffs, it's a completely different thing. But I would love a Tampa Colorado final. So I'm rooting for. I think you want to see McDavid succeed. I don't think there's a bad outcome. Having McDavid be in that final would be fantastic for hockey. I think that elevates a lot of things to have the star of the game
Yeah,
essentially the face of the game being the final. I think that's just good for the league
sure.
and the game. But Colorado just deserves it. They've kind of been doing this for a long time. So against Tampa would be either one of those teams would be, I think good for the game.
Who takes the series and how many games?
Colorado in 6.
Okay, I'm gonna go Colorado in 7.
That's probably a better guess, but I'll stick to mine because it
Over on
comes down to just like overtime games.
yeah.
It's double overtime or just I don't know, little things, and it could go the other. It could be Edmonton at 6. Who knows?
Over on the other side of the bracket, the Hurricanes fall to the Rangers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning just kicked the crap out of the Panthers. I feel like the Lightning haven't played in weeks.
That is quite right. They haven't played since the 23rd.
Okay, yeah, so I'm not
So it'll
wrong.
be and they play tomorrow.
They play tomorrow
So that's
against the Rangers.
against the Rangers. Lightning in 3. Do it. Beat them so bad. Beat them so bad that they don't even show up for game 4.
Here's what I want to say about this, right?
Because this is a controversy. This is a big.
It is.
Islander fans are somehow. All right, go ahead because I have a little bit of a thing too.
Sure, that's absolutely fine. So having covered the Islanders for such a long time now, I feel like I've removed my fandom just because of the fact that I cover the team and I try to stay as biased as possible. And now I'm more a fan of the game of hockey. So even though would I prefer the Islanders win? Sure. I also do cover the team though. I would much rather prefer just to see good hockey. So this whole bracket in like predictions and such, I've been pretty consistent in betting against the Rangers just because I don't feel like they're there yet. Credit to them for getting where they got. I'm not going to take that away from them. They're a good hockey team and they deserve to be there. They're here early and they deserve to be here.
The same way you could argue the Islanders were as well.
Sure.
The second time, no. The first time, yes.
I agree with you. They deserve to be there. And large in part due to the fact that Igor Shesterkin is playing out of his freaking mind. I will say this. Last night, I composed a tweet that said, credit to the Rangers. They got it out 2 7-game series. Good on them. However, the Lightning have Andrei Vasilevsky, who is no Casey DeSmith, Louis Domingue, and Antti Ranta. And man, I got the New York Rangers fan cavalry in my mentions, and it was just like, you loser, you're an idiot. And I'm just like, okay, relax, rent free. No, it's nothing like that. It's just abundantly true that Ranta is a 33-year-old backup at this point, and Louis Domingue was a 3rd-string goaltender. Casey DeSmith played in 1 game, and Tristan Jarry played in the other after having been injured for a really long time. So when I said the game has changed for the New York Rangers immediately after they beat the Carolina Hurricanes, that still holds true because it has. One, you're playing the best goaltender in the world. I know you have Igor Shesterkin and you think he is. He needs a little bit more than just a really good season to prove that, because the guy on the other side of the ice is going to be Andrei Vasilevsky, who has had just as good a season as Shesterkin has had, plus back-to-back Stanley Cups, plus a Conn Smythe. He's the best in the world right now. That's not a debate. And that, to me, in my opinion, yes, I cover the Islanders. This has nothing to do with that. This has to do with the Lightning are the champs until they're not. And they have the best goaltender in the world, plus Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Victor Hedman. Like, the list goes on.
Yeah, they're a much deeper team. Now, I think the question is, I think there's been a lot of debate on, do we want the Rangers to win and knock the Lightning off because they beat the Islanders and they're at risk? The people are tying this back to the dynasty, and I look, the dynasty was amazing. I don't really care about preserving the 19 straight playoff series. I think that's really great until it's not, and then we all move on and find something else. We've held on to this for almost 40 years now. I don't care if the Lightning win and move on. They still have to go and back to the Stanley Cup. They have to win a fourth cup and then go back to the final the next year. If there was any team in the modern era that could do it, if they can keep the salary cap under control, which they seem to be figuring out one way or another, this might be the team. I don't really see it. I mean, 3 seems really impossible, but I'm not worried about that. And that seems like people are like, oh, we want Tampa to win to beat the Rangers. And the people are like, no, we don't want them to catch up to the dynasty series, like consecutive series wins. And look, if you're an Islander fan or whatever, you just, I'm not anti-Rangers. I do maintain a little bit of like, it's funny when they lose and I'm around my Ranger fan friends because the same way that if the Islanders lose, they poke fun at me. It's not a hatred thing. It's really more of an Islander fan versus Ranger fan thing. That's the rivalry.
Yeah.
It's like they don't like each other on the ice, and it's the theatrics of it all, and everyone kind of builds it up. But the real rivalry is in the seats. It's not. I don't know that it's the same as it used to be as with these two teams. Maybe now with Reeves and Martin, and a couple tough guys on either side. I think, and both teams being good, and the goaltending matchup. Maybe that builds back up again. But I don't know that it is what it used to be. But yeah, where do you fall on that? Like, do you care if the Lightning almost catch the Islander consecutive series wins? Like,
no,
no,
because
it seems such like a weird thing.
I think for the Islander fan perspective, if the Lightning continue to win, that should probably actually make you feel better about losing to them twice in a row. They're that good.
Oh, there's that perspective as well. That like, yes,
they're that good.
It was worth it.
You
2
got
years
beat
in a row
twice.
was worth it. Like,
Yeah.
not worth it. It was easier to digest.
Yes,
that way, knowing that they at least went on to win.
Your team got beat twice in a row. They went on to continue to do that. So although you got there and you deserve to be there, the Lightning are who they are, and they eliminated you. And then they eliminated everybody else after. So it's not just you, it's everyone. They can beat anybody. And so if anything, you should feel better about that. This whole, do we want the Rangers or the Lightning to win? Look, if you're a true Islander fan, I don't know if any Islander fan should want to root for the Rangers. However, if you're casual, then it doesn't really matter. But a true Islander fan would probably want the Lightning to win despite recent history because, again, the Rangers are who they are.
I think if you're trying to just be somewhat objective and like what I'm trying to be, I think you're rooting for what you want, the best outcome. I want a Colorado-Tampa final. That is the best possible hockey for the final.
I agree.
If I'm going to be in my house in June instead of outside and enjoying the sunshine, of which is very little where I live, it better be some damn good hockey.
Yeah,
I'm not watching Edmonton get their shit kicked, or Edmonton, New York. I mean, maybe that's going to be interesting, but it's not going to be nearly as good as a Colorado Tampa.
Like last year when the Lightning just demolished the Canadians.
Yeah, I mean, I think Edmonton's certainly better than that. Colorado, New York would be okay too. It's still exciting. I don't want to take that much away, but again, I think having a team like Colorado finally overcome their demons, make it to the final, Tampa Bay going for the three-peat. It's a lot of the world's best players on the ice, right? Again, I don't think Colorado ultimately can do it just because of the goaltending battle alone. Everywhere else, those teams are real even.
Yeah.
But and Colorado might even have an advantage on the back end, frankly, offensively anyway. I don't know about shutdown, but offensively, they definitely have that push. It's the goaltending that would really make the difference.
Yeah.
And Vasilevsky's proven to be solvable. The Islanders, man, and with the offense that they had, it was very systematic, more so than a lot of other teams. But if the Islanders can do it, other teams can do it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And of all those other teams, Colorado is definitely capable. And not to take anything away from the Rangers, You have to give Zibanejad credit. Panarin, they've had players up and down their lineup figure it out at the right time.
Yep.
You're gonna have your superstars sometimes cancel out, and then you need, like the Rangers did last night, you just have a Ryan Strome score the third goal, ultimately the game winner.
Yeah.
That's going to be your difference maker. It's not going to be they're going to score goals. Those other players are going to score goals. McKinnon's going to score goals. Point's going to score goals. Who else? Who's bringing your team over the edge?
Yeah.
If those players don't have another gear, your team as a whole needs another gear. And that was what helped the Islanders. And that's what they need to target in the offseason, whether by trade, as we discussed last week, or by free agency, like we're about to discuss.
Excellent segue. So let's get to it. And I want to preface this by saying I was messing around with Armchair GM on Cap Friendly, and I came to a conclusion. If the Islanders are going to trade for a forward, they're not going to be able to sign another one in free agency, a top end one, I should say.
So they're not going to sign a 1A defender. What did you say?
If the Islanders trade for a forward, they're not going to have the capability of signing another one in free agency just because of the cap constraints that they have.
Oh, at 100%. That's what I was saying last week. Cap constraints and asset constraints.
Yeah.
Make all that very, very difficult.
So the fact of the matter is if for some reason the Kevin Fiala thing works out and they get him from Minnesota, that's your forward. That's your elite forward, first line forward that you're getting. I wouldn't expect another one. I feel more like the trade is going to be for a defenseman just because, again, of the options that are available via free agency. Maybe it will work out.
I think it's one of both. I think they can do both in free agency if that's what they choose.
That's also possible too. Yeah.
And so it could be free agency or trade that they do one or both. That's not as complicated as I'm making it sound. You can get both in free agency. You can get both via trade. You can split it down the middle. It really depends on what's available. And as we discussed last week, what assets you're using for what. Because if you use it for one thing, that means you don't have it for the other. I know that's like really easy, simple math, but you can't. Who's going to take what? Where is it going to go? If both teams want a first, Bellows and blank, well, only one of them can get it. What are you trying to address?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And again, after messing around with it, in order for Lamoriello to check off all the boxes of every fan's checklist, you'd be trading literally, and this is something I had to do in order for it to work. I even texted it to you and I said, "Am I batshit crazy?" You didn't respond, so I took that as a yes.
I did see it, but I was in the middle.
I wound up having to trade Anthony Beauvillier, Josh Bailey, Oliver Wahlstrom, and Semyon Varlamov. That's a lot of surgery. That's not going to happen.
I think the hard parts are Bailey, trying to figure out where that goes.
And you know what? I hear that, but at the same time, I also feel it's not as hard as it sounds because his cap hit, not his cap hit, but his real dollars owed is lower for the next 2 seasons than his $5 million cap hit. And 2, I think that the stigma around Josh Bailey is because Islander fans have such a gripe with him is that he's not worth anything. And that's just simply not true. I think a team like the Detroit Red Wings or the Ottawa Senators or one of the young teams who are looking to finally take the next step out of the bottom dwellers that they have been, who need leadership, will absolutely trade for Josh Bailey and take him. Because again, the 70+ games in the postseason with the I think he's got like 50 points in that span. He's got almost 1,000 games in the NHL. He's got over half a point per game, which again, if you're going to come at me and say half a point, who cares? Half a point in today's NHL is a good forward.
It's a third liner. I mean, a team like there's 12 teams that are below the floor right now. Los Angeles is just above the floor by less than $1 million. They're a team that was kind of on the cusp. They could use somebody like that
and they just lost Dustin Brown to retirement, so that makes perfect sense.
It could. I don't know that it's it's not a 1-for-1 there, but
no,
yeah,
but the leadership.
Yeah, I think it's definitely complicated. The Varlamov. So what I was saying was that the Bailey thing is the hard one, right? I think he definitely has value. To your point, you can find somewhere, but you're also probably sending an. You're not going to get a return. That's a more of a salary dump with an asset of some
Yeah.
sort.
I'll
Now,
say you'll get picks though.
maybe you might.
It's not going to be like Andrew Ladd where it was future considerations that never actually happened.
Right. So I'm saying it's if it's Bailey and a second, you're going to get a third back,
Sure.
or Bailey and a third, and you get a second. Like it's going to be something where you're just getting the asset back and you're also giving one up. So it's ultimately a victory on the cap, but it
Yeah.
doesn't cost you nothing, right? Bavilier could be used in the trade for a defenseman. That's been the conversation that's been happening, kind of
Yeah.
rehashing a little bit of last week, I guess, if you missed it. That leaves Varlamov, and that's really going to be the one that hurts because of the need for you still need to get a goalie then, which I don't know if you factored in to your armchair GMing. That would be a little bit of my issue is
Yeah, I did. I wound up.
who, yeah. So it says Braden Holtby. That's tough. Like yikes.
I
I
know.
don't know that those are two goalies that can carry you.
Well,
You're kind of
I
banking
think
on Sorokin playing 60 plus games,
I think
and
Sorokin can handle the 50 games. I
that's a
think.
lot of hockey for someone Braden Holtby is terrible.
Well, Braden Holtby had decent numbers. I think he had like um a 2 something GAA and he had like a 913 save percentage. So as a backup, that's serviceable.
Maybe I still think it hurts if you weren't.
It's not as good as Varlamov, and I don't think that when I made that armchair GM trade, I did it very like reluctantly. I was making a face as I was pressing enter, and I didn't want to do it. Um, but again, it was just for the point and for the sake of proving the point. This is not going to be easy.
No, it's gonna be really difficult, and I think it's gonna hurt more. Again, I think Bavilier is not gonna feel good for sure because you're always gonna wonder what could have been, and
Yep,
then you're
I
gonna
agree with that
kind of
100%.
watch him do it somewhere else. I think
Like
it's
Nino
gonna be
Niederreiter.
like Nino Ryder, any number of players. Milbury traded. This is different though.
Yeah.
This is somebody that can has taken a step back. His goals have gone down every year. As since he had a really good year his second year, and then it's gone down every single year. He had a little bit of a bounce back year this year, kind of. He really, he needed to step up. He had really good playoff runs. He was part of a lot of big goals. He played really well in back-to-back runs for the Islanders, and I guess that's where you need him, but like the Islanders need to make the playoffs now.
Yeah.
Again, like that's where the things need to get pointed to. It's not just about, oh, we'll make the playoffs and figure it out from there. It's no, you got to make it again. You have to kind of reprove yourself. And
Yeah.
in a crazy year where there was plenty of opportunity from this to try to figure it out and look at Nelson, look at Lee, look at the back half of the season for Parise and Palmieri and Pajot. He wasn't involved in any of that to that degree. He helped that line, but not to the same degree. So it's going to be disappointing. I think that one's going to be really hard too. But yeah, I understood what you were doing. I don't know how you don't do it either.
Yeah.
I could
Right.
also understand we're running it back and we need to improve. Like we need to work around those constraints. And there might just be other things we don't know.
Yeah.
Which continues to be our kind of mantra.
Yeah. That's true. But all right, that being said, let's dive into the free agent targets. We'll try to keep it short-winded so we're not focusing on one guy too long. But we'll look at the obvious and these free agent targets, just take this with as if we haven't traded for anybody yet. These free agent targets, the obvious ones here are going to be Johnny Gaudreau and Filip Forsberg. Starting with Johnny Gaudreau, if he makes it to free agency, what's a fair number for him if he agrees to sign with the Islanders? And Is it possible? First, start with that. Is it possible?
I'm not entirely sure, honestly. He's coming off of 6.75. He's been playing well. He had 99 points in 18-19, 2 shortened years. He didn't, less than a point per game in each of those. He had a good playoffs this year. Obviously, he had 115 points in 82 games. I don't know if it's, and he's 28. I'm not sure it's going to be much of a raise. I wonder if 7.5 would get that done.
7.5 million?
Maybe 8
AAV. See, that's the thing. I think he's going to ask for 8x9. Wherever.
Yeah,
well,
that's it.
It's going to be 7x9 because it's
7 years by 9 million.
Yeah, because you don't get the 8th year via free agency. So yeah, I think it was if he gets the free agency, he's going to ask for 9 million, and someone's going to pay him that.
I mean, if it's Lamoriello, if he wants to come to Long Island, if his goal is to come to the island, he's from New Jersey. If he wants to come back to the Northeast and essentially finish his career, you're taking a little bit of a pay cut. Lamoriello is gonna argue that down, and if you want term, you're not gonna get the AAV.
Well, now my other thought there is look at Panarin. He threw the bag at Panarin. He's going to give him 12.5 million. Do you think that that's not going to happen with Johnny Gaudreau? He's the best.
How old was
forward.
Panarin? How old was Panarin when that happened?
I think he was about 27, 26, 27.
26 is a lot different. The 7th year is 33. That's very different than 28.
So
he's going to be 29.
No, he was 28. He was.
I mean, so it's possible.
Rangers.
I mean, Gaudreau is not Panarin, but it would be a hell of a duo with Matt Barzal. So it may as well be. He's going to be 29.
Panarin has zero. Panarin has 0 100-point seasons. Johnny Gaudreau has a few. If I'm not mistaken,
he has one. He had 99.
He had 99.
He never.
And then he has. So I wouldn't say he's not.
I mean, all right, maybe like Gaudreau will start the season a year or a half a year older than Panarin. That's not nothing. Yeah, if you want, I mean, if you can get him, get him. I mean, I guess the answer is I don't care what you pay for him, kind of thing.
Yeah,
he's true. An asset. It opens. The window might not be open for long, but it's open wider in the short.
It's one of those things where if you get him, it's like, okay, here we go.
Now you can open. It's not open. Yeah, it's not open longer. It's open wider for the short term, and I think that's totally fine. It limits. You have to consider Barzal does need a contract following this season. What does that look like? So if you're paying Gaudreau 8, you're surely paying. You are already paying Barzal 10, right? And he's obviously worth. So he's going to get more than Gaudreau. So maybe yeah. So what did you say? What was the number you said? 7 years by 8 million?
7 by 9.
That's real long. I would hope he does 6 years, but if they have to just get it done. Look, I only want to worry about the next 2 or 3 seasons. Yeah, after that, it's where if we need to go back, like figure something else out. Although a lot of other teams are figuring it out. Pittsburgh's making it back to the playoffs. The other teams are, Pittsburgh had like almost it was a 7 or 8 year gap between cups, and they won 2 in a row. Like you can have a core of a team and figure it out later on, right? Like it's not impossible. They've had multiple goalies help them get to these cups. They made the cup finals 2 years in a row. They lost to Detroit. They beat them the next year. Then they won their 2 on their own. Like there's ways to get this done in the long term. Again, your top 6, hopefully, if they're going to stick around, they have longer contracts. They should be towards the bottom of your lineup as still serviceable forwards. Lee, Nelson, Cole's guys old in 3 years, sure. That's a great third line, though.
Yeah, I agree.
And the other players you got to figure out. So Gaudreau, I'd hope it was 6 by 8. I'm not disappointed if they throw 7 years at him just to get him. And you're totally right with any of these players that Lamoriello threw through his pocketbook at Panarin.
Yeah.
And just got turned down.
Yeah, and these are the guys who are going to want the security in term, and they're going to want the payout in cash. So that's why I think that they're going to go for as much as they can with 7x9. Which brings me to my next free agent target, the only other obvious guy on the market, who everybody's always talking about. If not Gaudreau, it's Filip Forsberg. Is it possible? If so, what are you signing him for?
He's also 28 in August. I think he has the same birthday as Gaudreau. Is that super weird?
That would be super weird. I cannot confirm if they have the same birthday.
I was looking at both of their cat friendly pages.
Are they both August 13th, 94 babies? That's actually my brother's birthday.
Forsberg's a year younger.
Oh, okay.
But they're the same date. Very weird. And they both they don't both shoot. All right. Anyway, Forsberg would be cheaper. I think for sure.
Maybe
if you're paying 7x8 for Gaudreau, who's had 115 point season, 99 points, all this. I mean, Forsberg did have 42 goals and 42 assists in a contract year. That definitely means something. He also just had 48 points in 63 games and 50 points in 64 games. He's been more of a point per game guy. This year was the anomaly. If you're Lamoriello, you're not overpaying for one good year. What you're selling him on is come here and play with Barzal. That's it.
Yeah, I agree.
Here's a good contract. Here's 5x7.
See, I think the problem here is that
That's a raise for him. Like, he had a 6-year deal. He's just not Gaudreau, and he needs to prove it. He's had a few 30-goal seasons, but really, his point production per game has not been good. And then he is a ghost in the playoffs.
Two things come to mind here for me. One, between both Forsberg and Gaudreau, a team knows that if Forsberg's thinking about one team and another team slides in and says, hey, we'll give you that extra year, he's going to take the term. So I think automatically both of these guys are getting max term. I think 7 years is happening for both of them. The other thing is, what do you value more? Do you value the 100-point mark more, or do you value the 42 goals more? Because yes, maybe the 42 goals doesn't exactly happen again, but if he's consistently in the 35 plus, and Gaudreau,
which he has not done in his career.
Gaudreau is well, yeah, you're right. But he's also had these abbreviated seasons where he's hit 26, 28. The 21 was a down year, and then this year he hit 42. So the consistency is pretty much there. You could say that he should be expected to score 35 goals pretty regularly for the next at least 3 years. So do you value the 42 goals more, or do you value the Johnny Gaudreau 30 goals, 100 points more?
I mean, Gaudreau also had 40 goals this season.
Did he have 40 this season?
He had 40 this season, and in the last 2 full seasons, he's better than a point per game. So 17, 18, 18, 19, he had 84 and 99 respectively.
Okay.
It was the last 2 abbreviated seasons where he had down years. Then this year he went back pretty much to his former self. So Gaudreau is the get here for sure.
So he's the 7x9. So then what's the fair contract for Filip Forsberg?
7x7, 7x7.5. To raise a million. I mean, it's still a lot for a player that, he had a really good playoff run in 16-17. I believe that's when they went to the final, 22 games. And then in 17-18, he had 16 points in 13 games. So he can play, and that's, hate to say, that's a long time ago. It's going to be 5 seasons ago now. Next season.
Yeah.
That's not the same player anymore, right? And since then, he really 5 points in 4 games, 3 points in 6. He had 1 goal in 4 games this year in that sweep. I understand who you're playing, but that's a time to step up. That's the best on best. You have to figure that out.
Yeah.
if you're looking to make other moves and you're trying to fit Chychrun in and do this, if you don't trade for like a Vince Dunn who has a contract, I believe, and is a little cheaper to play next to Dobson or something,
Yeah, he's
like,
got 1 year left at $4 million.
so if you're trying to figure that out and you want to do both, like make an impact, maybe you go Forsberg Dunn, or you go Forsberg Chychrun and Gaudreau Dunn, just because that makes the dollars and cents of it all work. Again, assuming that Lamoriello can kind of open up some space there, which I don't know how you don't do. So we're all in for a surprise when he figures something out. But he's done crazier things.
So I half wonder if Lamoriello, this is the off season where he pulls a rabbit out of a hat and acquires like a Ryan Kessler contract, who's owed like $7 million per for the next maybe 2 seasons, and just pulls a straight up Tampa Bay Lightning and has that on his LTIR for the whole season in order to fit this crazy off season in. I half wonder that.
I don't know enough about it to make, like, I don't know why that makes it work.
Well, it adds an extra $7 million to your cap. I mean, so teams. This is a discussion for maybe next week, and we could talk about that then. But the idea is essentially to acquire the cap hit that's obviously going to go to LTIR in order to acquire that space in the $7 million that Kessler would have been owed if he was playing today, but he's not. So
yeah, I don't totally understand.
We'll talk about that next week. But yeah, no, I think I agree with you. 7x7 is fair for Forsberg. I think you can live with that. And maybe they front load that contract. So I think you can live with that later in his contract years as well. That brings him into what you said, his age 34 season. So maybe 35. Yeah, I can live with that. If he's scoring 30 goals regularly next to Matthew Barzal, yeah, you can definitely do that.
Yeah, I think both of those players significantly open up the Islanders window in the short term.
Absolutely. Hockey fans, the pursuit for the Stanley Cup is on, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has an unbelievable offer for the most exciting playoffs in sports. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $100 in free bets, no matter what, win or lose. Looking to turn a small bet into a big payday during the playoffs? With DraftKings same-day game parlays, you can do just that. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets, like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more. It's your shot at even bigger payouts. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code THPN, bet $5 on any NHL team to win, and get $100 in free bets, no matter what. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, less obvious forwards, but some of the better ones on the open market. Starting with Claude Giroux, do the Islanders go after this guy if they miss both Gaudreau and Forsberg? And what would be a fair contract for him?
Wouldn't do it.
Okay, why not?
34. There's really not room. If this was like, and I don't think he's going to be cheap. Like he's making almost 8.3 in this last 8-year deal that he had with Philly.
So you don't think he's one of those guys who, I've made my money, I'll sign a cheaper deal to win somewhere?
I think the Islanders have those. Like, in theory, the Islanders' first line is X, Barzal, X. Who knows? Parise goes and plays on that third line. Pajot, Parise, Palmieri. You have Nelson with Lee and Wallstrom. Whatever. Where is he playing? He's gonna be he's gonna be on your first line with Barzal and Gaudreau.
That's the belief. If it were him,
I mean, maybe I definitely see him in a middle six. Look at where he was playing. I don't think he was playing on top units.
He kind of
was a power play in Florida. So like, and it's hard to say because it wasn't really that many games and blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, he had 23 points in 18 games with them with Florida.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, if he's gonna take a sweetheart deal, it's got to be like he's gonna want years. The Islanders they're already tying. They're
Yeah, it
first.
looks like he
God, the
played
fan
second
base
line
would just
minutes.
Isles Twitter would lose it. There's no right scenario with that.
Yeah, it's another old guy. Now, okay, I agree with you. You don't sign this guy if he unless he takes like an extreme discount, like I'll sign for 3 years, which is the Islanders window, and I'll sign for like 4.5 million. Unless he does that, no, you don't sign this guy.
4.5. That's a lot. It's a lot. How many
So
years?
3.
3? No, absolutely not. You ready? No. No. You just got out from under these 35 plus contracts. You can't add it. I mean, in theory, he signs for a year or 2 and you put him next to Nelson and Lee on the second line, and that's fine.
Okay,
I don't want to stick him on the first line. Like, you need somebody a little bit more. I mean, he's another setup guy next to Barzal. Like, would they even drive? I don't know that makes a whole lot of sense.
so let me ask you about this next guy. What about David Perron?
Perron's dynamic. I mean, he really he had a hell of a series this year against the Avalanche. He was kind of this very clutch performer in the second round. He didn't quite get the team over the hump, but he might be somebody. That's definitely an option.
If I said to you he's never scored 30 goals in a season, you would say yes or no?
I don't think he has.
He has not. He's topped out at 28 in 2013-14 with Edmonton. And since then, his highest was actually this past season, 27 goals, 30 assists, and he's topped out in total points at 66 with Vegas in 2017-2018.
Yeah, it's forever ago. If you're gonna pay him a lot less than what he got paid this season, whatever that was, he might be able to kind of flank Barzal and
So what are you paying him?
whomever.
For how long, too?
I mean, how old is he?
There's the question. I was going to ask you that next. How old is he?
He's been around he's one of these guys that have been around forever. Like, he's got to be in his mid 30s.
33. He's going to be 34.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, if you're taking a couple year deal, 3-year deal on somebody like that, they don't really have the room to move them lower in the lineup in a few seasons.
I agree. I think the thing
that's
with
the problem. Like, unless you're going to move Parise, like, Parise's not going to stick around forever because he's already 37, 38 years old, right? So if Perron or Giroux are future Parises on the third line, sure, that's just a really expensive third line all of a sudden, and you really, I don't know how you do it, frankly.
Yeah, I think the thing with Perron is that he's at the age now where no one's going to sign him long term, so he's going to choose wherever he's going to win. I think for me, Perron, I think I signed him up. I think I signed him for two maybe 3 years at most, just because he's a finisher, and he's the kind of guy that the Islanders haven't had next to Matthew Barzal, barring any time that he spent with Wahlstrom, and that really hasn't happened, or hasn't blossomed yet. I think it will if he's still in an Islander jersey next season, but that really hasn't blossomed yet. So, Perron at 2 to 3 years to keep it within the Islanders' winning window, I would say, yeah, I would sign him up. Nothing over $5 million though. I don't even know if they can afford that, but
that's what I'm saying. I like where that second forward.
It's one of those things where if they move Bailey and replace his cap hit with Perron for 2 years, then that works, right? Because he's the kind of guy who's going to score you at least 25 goals in a season, and he does it pretty consistently. He's not the kind of guy who's known to fall off the map, and he's got a little bit of grit to his game. So it's going to be one of those moves where if somebody's shipped out, he comes in to fill that gap and provides a need in goal scoring.
I think that's the same with our next guy too. I think this is the type of player that, yes, assuming that they move Bailey. Again, and Beauvillier is also gone. Wahlstrom steps into that second line role, and what we're talking about is a left winger, essentially, or a left or a right winger to play with Barzal, because you got to remember you're filling both spots.
So
I really don't think Wahlstrom finds his way back on that first line.
So the reason why I put this guy on our list is because I feel as though if Anthony Beauvillier is moved, this guy has a similar game. Andre Burakovsky will be a free agent. He played his last 3 seasons with the Colorado Avalanche, 2 20-goal seasons with them. One, he fell just short in 53 games, scoring 19 in the 2020-21 season. Obviously, his numbers look good. He played with Colorado. Can he replicate that outside of the offensive juggernaut that they are? Remains to be seen. But he's going to be 27, or he is 27. For I think he just turned 27, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he turned 27 in February, so he'll be 27, 28 next year, next season. You could sign this guy for a little bit longer, but does he fill that top line role?
Maybe. I mean, he had 39 assists last year. Again, when you think of, like, yes, Colorado's a little bit of an offensive juggernaut, like you said, but playing next to Barzal is you're giving him familiar teammates, right? In a lot of respects, and it depends on who's on that other side. If you're trying to catch Wahlstrom up, that's never going to happen. Two guys on the line are never. They're not. I love Barzal. I think he's fantastic, but no matter who, even if Gaudreau Barzal is still no Draisaitl McDavid. It's still no. It's closer to a Marner Matthews or something like that. But even then, those two players are on a little bit of a different level.
It's just very interesting, though, because you look at he played 5 years in Washington, 328 games, 145 points. Washington has the Backstroms, the Oshis, the Ovechkins. You would think that he would still be able to produce the way he did in his 3 years, 191 games. So that's a little less than half of the amount of time, and he has 5 more points in total. So 191 games, 150 points in the 3 years with Colorado, 328 games, 145 points in 5 years with Washington.
He also won a cup with Washington.
Yes, he did.
He's been, like, even in that year where Washington won, he didn't play in all the games in the playoffs. I don't know if he was injured. This year, he was a healthy scratch with Colorado in the St. Louis series. I think he's back. He made it back for the end of the series, and he's in the lineup tonight as we speak. My understanding, or at least he was taking warm ups last I saw. I don't know what you pay him. I don't know what he's actually worth, because he's not close to any of these other guys yet. His cap hit would be in that same neighborhood of what we're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So unless this coaching staff and Lamoriello see something we don't, which is likely, they see some things differently, I'm not entirely sure, frankly. I don't know. I don't know what you pay him. I don't know if that's worth it. Again, that sounds like a better second line player or third line player than, because that's what he was on these teams. This isn't. We kind of need someone established. Lamoriello was bound to do something more like what Vegas did in finding some player in the rough, and all of a sudden, William Karlsson, great. Now we just have this 40-goal scorer. Like, I don't think that Lamoriello needs to do that. I think he needs to find somebody established. Burakovsky could very well be a 30-goal scorer, 60 assist guy next to, not 30 and 60, but maybe he's 15 and 60 next to Barzal. We kind of need somebody that we know is money in the bank, and that's just not this guy.
Yeah, I
wish I had a big no buzzer. I feel like that would have been a good opportunity to be like,
meh.
Yeah, that this is not the guy. This is, again, I've said this a million times. I've written it a million times. Lamoriello needs to make, this is impact summer season. This is not, let's see what this guy can do. They do not have that kind of window. They have a very good core, but they need, this is a very shiny car. They need to put a new motor in this thing.
So then that brings us to our last but not least forward. Familiar face, someone you might know.
Someone I might know.
Someone that the listener right now might know a former or possible former Carolina Hurricane, a former Minnesota Wild, and a former New York Islander. If you haven't figured it out by now, we're talking about none other than Nino Niederreiter, who is going into his age 30 season. Holy crap, am I old? Um, but yes, Nino Niederreiter, 24 points, 24 goals, 44 points last season with the Hurricanes. Um, he's not a top line guy, but if all else fails, do you sign this guy to a deal in order to fill a need? He has I was
You're
reading it.
guaranteeing Wallstrom plays with Barzell at that point. Like again, he's not a top line guy, and he had a really shitty playoff. He's when he first got to Minnesota, he had some good playoff runs, but he's been a 30, 40 point guy. He had one 57-point season, 82 games in 16, 17. That's a lifetime ago. I don't know. I don't think he's worth the cap room. It would be something terrible would need to happen for the or not happen for this signing to be a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's Burakovsky, Niederreiter, even Perron. Are they options? Yeah, they better be plan C, D. Yeah, like it. You're looking pretty far down the lineup for those things. And if you're going to go out and sign someone that's largely unproven, I don't know, give some, elevate Wallstrom, put Bellows on a line with Nelson and Lee, and just call it a day. Like if you're really just not going to do anything, don't just throw money at the problem. It's not going to set you up for any kind of long. It's going to hurt you in the short and long term. Like if that's the case, if you're going after these guys that are, I don't know, let's give it a shot. Just call it a season. Just call it a season early.
Oh my god. So real quick, it was 1-0 Oilers, Evander Kane, and we're tied.
Yeah.
This is going to be an unbelievable series. Who scored? This JT Comfort? Is it JT Comfort? Yeah, Comfort is having an unbelievable playoffs for the Avalanche. Ties things up at 1. We need to wrap up soon because I need to watch this game.
Yeah.
But all right, that does it for the forwards. I agree with you on Niederreiter. He doesn't push the needle. Look, if you're moving multiple assets and somehow maybe retrieving something you need and later in the offseason, or maybe not even later, but at the point in the offseason where you move those assets and you need a second or third liner, maybe Niederreiter considers
That
coming back.
100% for what we know the primary need is and what the focus is in this offseason and adding significant offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it Perron, Burakovsky, Niederreiter are not it.
I agree with you. It's gonna have to be. It's gonna be the summer and has to be the summer of either Johnny Gaudreau and Filip Forsberg or trade market Kevin Fiala or someone who we're not thinking of. My mind goes to Patrick Kane, who is possibly going to be moving on from the Chicago Blackhawks. I think we
It's going
spoke
to be
about
something.
that last week.
If you're going to do something crazy, you do something crazy.
Yeah, and that's one of the guys that you go for. He's in his early 30s. I think he's going to be 32, maybe 33, but he still slings it. He can still do it. So, and
Agreed.
he's still doing it at an elite level. And next to Barzell, that would be a hell of a show. So, all right, moving on to defense. There's only a few defenders here that on the free agent market would make sense to fill one of the two holes, either the second pairing defenseman hole or the third pairing defenseman hole that is currently there. Could be filled by a Robin Salo if he has an impressive camp. We'll see. But if not, first things first, Kris Letang. He may hit the open market. He may not hit the open market. He had 60 plus points for the Penguins this year. And it's quite possible that the Penguins decide they're going to go in a different direction and not bring him back. If he's available, do you sign him for top 4 minutes?
I think he's also a righty, so I'm not sure that there's a good combo with a Noah Dobson type, who's also a righty.
Yeah, and then I think at that point you might be able to mix and match. Maybe you can break up Pellick and Pollock if you bring a guy like Letang in, and it'll still work.
I mean, there's still a righty and lefty, so you're only moving Pellick off that top unit to play with Dobson, and then you still have
Yeah,
Pellick.
that's
I
true.
mean,
Actually,
I don't know. Mayfield is also a righty, unless they decide to move on from him too, and you're bringing in a Letang, although it's significantly more expensive, which is the point I was making with Mayfield. People were saying get rid of them, get rid of him. Again, he's like Varlamov. First of all, you keep what you know, and you continue to build around that until you literally can't. The Islanders are not in that position yet. They are awfully close, but they're not quite there yet. His contract, in Mayfield's case anyway, his contract is very cheap. So I would leave that one alone and find a partner. Again, whether that's Salo and Green, splitting time in the third pair, with maybe Salo getting a little bit more of the minutes and the games played there, or another lefty to play along with Mayfield. I don't know that Letang necessarily works, and I think he would still maintain a pretty high salary that the Islanders just can't. You don't want him for 3 years. 3 years at $5 million would be way too much,
yeah,
right? That's you're hitching your wagon to something that's very unknown. And it could work for half the season and just be an absolute disaster the rest of it. You do not want like an Eric Carlson situation. I
yeah. That's
think,
that's the thing too. He is often injured.
yeah, I say I think this, the closest 60 assists is attractive for sure. I wouldn't fall in love with that. You got to remember who he's playing with. I don't know how many of those are power play points. Um, it's a significant jump. He hasn't had close to 70 points in a really long time. But yeah, it's also a contract year for him. So like he knows what he's playing for. He's probably getting relied on really heavily. He probably played the most minutes. Um, he played almost the whole, the entire. He only missed 4 games this season, which is pretty remarkable. But yeah, I don't. You're hitching to him for 3 years. I'd just say no, because again,
Yeah,
he's going to want $4 or $5 million for at 3 years, like, and you don't know where you're going to put him.
yeah. I agree with you there. Just because again, where you're going to put him, that the fit isn't right, so he doesn't make as much sense. The other top 4 guy on this list that I will mention, however, I don't know who. I don't know if it'll be a popular decision if it is made. Is John Klingberg, 30 years old? I think he's going into his age 31. No, he's going to his age 30 season. But he had 6 goals and 41 assists last season. That would be second to Noah Dobson, but it's not close, but anywhere in between that, right? Pellick was the next best point collector amongst defensemen, with like 28 points. So do you sign up John Klingberg? He does want 7 years. He wants max term.
At 29, he's going to be 30. Um, he might open your window a little bit. I don't know if it moves the needle enough where it's worth it in those latter years. Um, Again, another righty. So unless you're going to move out a Mayfield and have 3 really solid pairs, I just don't know if that works.
Yeah.
You lose a lot of toughness moving, Mayfield. You can limit his minutes on the third pair, and you still have a little bit of toughness there on, for penalty killing and things. I don't know if Klingberg is worth it. I mean, he's definitely improved. Albeit in 20 more games, he had 10 more points. He's a little bit far removed from close to a 70-point season. He's not going to get better. He's not going to get better over the course of that contract. He's only going to get worse. And I'm not saying 28, 29, 30, 32, stuff like that, where that's ultimately the problem. He may even stay the same. He may play 70 plus games and get close to 50 points the next 2 seasons. It's just long term. That's a really tough look. And I know you can get out from under these things, but you can't strike gold every single time and get these contracts out. It's just not possible. So I don't know that you do it.
Would you say the same if would you say it's a copy and paste answer if I said the name PK Subban?
Yeah, I mean, he's just not the same as he used to be. I know a little bit more about him than Klingberg. Just because he's with the Devils, he's in the East, and obviously he had some time with Nashville, so he had some time away. But he's far removed from that Norris season. Another righty. I'm not really sure where you plug him in there. Again, unless you're gonna lose a Mayfield, and I think Mayfield's way more serviceable than Subban. That might be a knock on Mayfield. That's probably not even as generous as it should be with what Mayfield's adds versus what Subban can. Yeah, I think I'd go Klingberg over Subban for sure. Just on recency.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Last but not least, and this would be to fill the third pairing defense. Do the Islanders bring back the beard? Nick Leddy.
My doppelganger. Yeah, I'd say that's fine if you can get him for cheap.
What's the contract?
So he's coming off 5.5. If you can get him for 3, he's 31. He's the kind of guy, like, again, maybe you're splitting. If you think Robin Salo can really be something, that's maybe who you start splitting the time with. Salo gets the Dobson treatment a little bit. He's around a Nick Leddy. That's a really good player for player for Salo to be around. He has some familiarity with Mayfield and obviously the rest of the team. I think it's a good mentor for Salo. If you can get him for 3 or under, for me for 2 or 3, 3.5, 3 by 3.5 or something, I think that's okay. Just because it gives you some room to have as your 7th defenseman. Even though that might be a little too long. Like, I think to bring him back and the value that he adds in the short term, that might be a little long. I don't love it myself, frankly. I think that, if you can get it for 2, that's more ideal, I think. Just because Salo could blossom over this year, and then what do you need Leddy for? You do need healthy scratch defensemen. As long as Leddy's okay with that role,
right?
It's gonna be harder for him to get another contract after that. So maybe that's why he wants 3 years. But yeah, I'd say that's fine for a third pair. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that Lamoriello could approach him with the same approach he had with Kyle Clutterbuck. Hey, come see this through. Sorry I traded you. Maybe I'll let you have a 5 o'clock shadow and take 50% of what you were making for 2 years. Let's win a cup. Come play in this beautiful arena.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't bad with the last two seasons with the Islanders, albeit short seasons. Had not super great playoff runs as far as points were concerned. He did have 5 and 9 games with St. Louis in this last year, and they're really good. I mean, that's against a really good team. Yeah, I'd say go for it. Honestly, I think that's an upgrade from Green. It gives you a little, again, it allows you to kind of split time with Salo. There's some familiarity with Mayfield. I'd say go for that. I think that's fine. Again, it's not the most ideal, and you might have to go for that 3rd year. Hopefully not longer than that to just make it happen. But he might be excited to come back to Long Island.
And the thing is too, you have to understand that it is strictly for third pair. It is not a second pairing thing. If Nick Leddy winds up in the top 4, there's a problem.
Yeah, and that's where like Lamoriello would wind up, at one side of his mouth, he's like, well, Salo's going to play with Mayfield all season. He's like, also, Leddy's going to play with Dobson. You're like, whoa, I like the first thing better. What happened? How'd you get there? And then fans are going to get all over him for not making a deal and kind of failing to, just like a Panarin thing, failing to kind of land some kind of big fish on both, in this case, on both forward and D. Where in the past it was just on, he's got to make up for Taves, he's got to make up for the lack of Panarin. Like he's kind of and this last season was a little bit of a, they tried some stuff and it just really didn't freaking work. So he's got some, it's not in Lou we trust anymore. This is, I think Lou is as on the hot seat as much as somebody like him can be.
Yep.
There's some work from to do and some trust to earn back from the fan base. And I think us, a lot of those little things worked in the past. So, and as we wrap up, free agents after we discussed trades last week, I don't know. These little things worked in the past, and they just need so much more than that.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's gonna be a difficult offseason for him to navigate, but you're right. He's on the hot seat. He absolutely cannot strike out. He needs to acquire the right.
He's a knocking out of the park.
He needs to acquire the necessary the upgrades that this team needs in order to take that next step. And honestly, I should say 2 steps, because 1 step is getting back into the playoffs, and 2 is being a legitimate contender. So
yeah, I think that left wing, if you're going to go for that third pairing defender or a left or the right winger for Barzal, the other player on Barzal's line needs to be you need to knock it out of the park. If you're going to get Niederreiter to play with Barzal and Gaudreau, hell yeah, go for it. I'm sure that'll be fine. I'll deal with it. Just cap constraints alone, I understand. I'll let it go. If you're going to get Chychrun and then bring back Leddy, sure, I'm here for that. That's not a big deal. But there needs to be 2 major acquisitions this summer, one way or another, on forward and D, and then to fill it out. Yeah, you got to fill it out. You get some good supporting cast players, and you never know what can happen.
Absolutely. That wraps it up for episode 110, John. Wow. This was a good episode. 110 episodes, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're gonna go. I don't know when we're gonna start season 4. But,
probably closer to training camp. No,
I don't know. Is July 1st technically the new season?
That's a good question. We'll have to go back and see when we started the new season for season 3.
Say we blaze our own path. Let's just we'll just do it.
Maybe
mainly because I'll probably forget.
Maybe.
July 1st or whatever the free agency is begins the 13th or whatever. That seems like a clean cutoff to me, and we'll surely have something to talk about right after that. We're trying to line up some good guests and chat about things as things kind of evolve in the off season or whatever. And it'll be good.
Yep. Until then, enjoy the conference final games. We'll reconvene next week. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Aspen Hockey. You can find my work at the 4th period and John's work at the Hockey Writers, and check out Isles Fix, an excellent curated newsletter. Again, it's their off season, but you will get that occasional off season email from them regarding any transactions that might have happened. Until next time, everybody, let's go Islanders.